Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Super Dandori Bros Podcast, Episode 9. We are your hosts. I am Leighton, and today I have, as always, the awesome Ryan.
I mean, I am pretty awesome.
Yes.
But please continue.
Oh, you were hoping for more.
Yeah.
Next time. I just, little bit by little bit. I'll give you a bit every week, a new one.
I appreciate it.
I'll burn it all out in one, and there'll be nothing left. So today we have kind of a fun topic, something that I think as we get older, this is becoming more and more of a subject that is more relevant to us, especially for me as a dad who has kids, is trying to find fun Nintendo games that are also really good for beginners. And we're kind of sticking to Nintendo games specifically, though we may talk a little bit about non-Nintendo games, but Nintendo as a whole is a very family-friendly company and has a wide range of games in different genres that definitely help bring people into the gaming world and, ease them in, slowly without just throwing them off the deep end. And it's been something that they've definitely been focused on a lot more since the Wii generation. The Blue Ocean strategy was their whole mantra, and it kind of still is, though they've kind of balanced it a little bit more with hardcore. And, we just want to talk about that. Some games that are either modern, some games that have come and gone that we think would be great games for newcomers to get them into either Nintendo or just video games as a whole.
Yeah, I sort of came at this from a slightly different angle, which is that, I'm married. I do not have children at this time. So I don't have quite that experience, but my wife, she played games growing up. She wasn't quite as much of a gamer as I was, though she did actually, play a lot of Nintendo games. And so I have, over the years, introduced her to genres that she's never played before, like a series she's never played before. Some Nintendo series, for example, Pikmin, of course, she had never played, and I got her started on that. And so I came at it from a bit of a different perspective, in addition to some of my colleagues who, play games sort of casually and like introducing them to new series. So I sort of came at it from a different angle. So I figured that we can have a little bit for everyone in this podcast.
Absolutely. And I think we'll go a little bit back and forth in our thoughts as we bring up different games and what we feel. Because for those who don't know, when we come up with these subjects, we basically start with the subject and then we just go do our own thing. We do our own research, we come up with our own notes, and we just kind of come together at the time of recording so that it's kind of fresh and different, and it really is a discussion between us. It's not like this is all scripted. Obviously, we have a pre-made subject and some notes, but this is all coming at you live and real. So with that in mind, I'll let you start, Ryan, as always, and bring us a game that you think is great for, it may be in a certain genre. What was the first game that you had to mind that you wanted to bring up?
Okay, so if I were to approach it from the standpoint of introducing a child to games, again, I don't have a kid, but my wife and I are considering it, and so our thought was, when we do introduce them to video games, what would be a good one to start with? And the first one I thought of, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about this, is Animal Crossing. And the reason why is because there are almost zero stakes in Animal Crossing. I think the highest stakes are, getting stung by a bee in Animal Crossing. There's more or less the highest stakes. Are there certain things that you can, like sell off and never get back, in that way, sort of points of no return? Absolutely. But most everything, especially in the newest Animal Crossing, can be at one point or another reversed. There are very few things that are permanent. And so, the first thing I thought of was Animal Crossing. The content is very well curated for the most part, assuming you don't go online. And, you can guarantee that it's going to be family friendly with Nintendo. And it's just a way for, the kid to go around, explore, and then also just sort of make something that's their own. And that's sort of where I thought that I would start with when it comes to Nintendo games. Like if I were to get a kid started, that's what I would recommend. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. I think the gameplay itself and the content and the progression is perfect for getting anyone into games. Like you said, low stakes. It's all in real time, so you're not like under a time limit really, like to get things done and very quickly, unless you are late. But There is one caveat I do want to bring to this, and it's something I learned when I started introducing my kids to games, is their reading comprehension.
Oh,
And
that's a good point.
something that I never considered, because there's so many games, I thought this is an easy game, until I realized Nintendo doesn't do voiceover. Everything has to be read. So unless you're there with them, which is it's a great way for you to spend some bonding time, is to just be there and read instructions and help them through it. But if it's a game that you want them to kind of play on their own, it's probably not the best game till they're at least like probably 7 or 8 years old, and they can actually read the prompts, read the instructions, because without reading, you don't necessarily know what to do. The game's really good at holding your hand if you can read the prompts. So from that perspective, it's great, but only if your gamer child is somewhere in that range where they can actually start reading, or they've watched you play it enough that they kind of get the gist of it. I've noticed that too with my kids, is that there's certain things they've watched me do, so they just kind of know to do it. But again, when like they're like, "Hey, what's this? I don't know." They didn't know they're supposed to press certain buttons to do certain things, or how to get to certain menus. So that's the thing they have to kind of learn over time. But otherwise, like, phenomenal game to get started with, as far as just like handing them the reins and saying, "Have fun." Great sandbox. Do whatever you want.
Absolutely, and I think that even just from an art style standpoint, it's very safe and kid-like and appealing. You know, the amount of the types of color palettes, and a little bit less so in New Horizons, because a lot of the furniture was like crafted, as opposed to like older Animal Crossings, which had like the furniture sets, which were a little bit more, which granted there were a few in New Horizons, but the older ones had a little bit more of an identity in their furniture sets. So I think we did lose that with New Horizons, but I think that in particular would be very appealing to kids, just visually, and sort of being able to sort of like have their own thing and arrange it however they want. And yeah, it's going to be like super dysfunctional and ugly and like whatever, because they're kids. But at the same time, like, I could totally imagine that being awesome. Like, I played Animal Crossing for the first time, I think I was like either 10 or 11 or something. And we had it, it came out for the GameCube. And so not that much older than, what you were suggesting for reading comprehension limit. And so, I don't know, like, I think that Animal Crossing is a good place to start, but it's not where I would recommend adults start necessarily, which is funny because, it obviously took the world by storm during the pandemic. But I would have a different recommendation for adults when it comes to Nintendo games. It's funny. But yeah, that's what I think about Animal Crossing.
It's funny you mentioned that, because my wife, I asked her about this very topic before I started recording, and Animal Crossing was one of her games that she recommended for adults.
Okay,
so
really?
For someone who's never played video games, right? We're talking someone who's like, this is their first game, because of the similar thing as a child is like getting used to hitting buttons. Now, an adult obviously can read and understand the instructions, but they have to now get used to using a controller and pressing buttons. But again, there's low stakes. You don't have to do this quick timing and get everything, button combos to do everything. It's all just like you can go as slow as you want. So it kind of just depends on what you're doing and the type of person, honestly. Like, obviously, some people, like my wife, and I'm assuming maybe your wife too, both like Animal Crossing, and it's because it's a game that doesn't push you along super fast, and you do it at your own pace. You get to create your own world. But but again, if someone wants a little bit more, like maybe they're just want to jump into something a little more meaty. I'm trying to think of a game. I have a few games on my list. I was going to stay on the kids one, but I want to kind of follow in this topic real quick.
Okay.
I think something, if someone was looking for something more meaty but still kind of casual intro, I was going to say Mario Party.
Okay, that's actually a really interesting idea.
Because there's a lot more going on, and it's definitely a lot more like multiplayer engaged with other people who can kind of walk you through as things happen. And the games, especially on the Switch, are sometimes a little more motion control, so it's not quite as like making sure to press all the right buttons. And it's, again, at a certain pace, but it has a lot more depth to it, especially the new one. Jamboree is insane. Like, it's one of the... I've played it, and it's like really... reinvented Mario Party, which I didn't know was possible, but they've just found new items and new ways to really change the strategy, which is super fun. It's like you're playing a proper board game. And not that the other ones weren't. I think the GameCube ones were pretty in-depth, but it felt like the Mario Parties got really dumbed down and easy, and this is the first game that felt like it kind of came back to a real challenging style game. So
Yeah, I'll have to play it sometime. I've heard really good things about it. I'm like, I guess a casual Mario Party fan. Like, I've enjoyed it, but I won't sit down and play game after game after game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think, and I think that specifically, like, when I got it in life, like, I wasn't having like people over all the time to play Mario Party. You know what I mean? But now it probably would be, like, especially Jamboree would be an excellent game for just like, if you have a few friends over, it's like, yeah, let's just fart around on this and it'll be a good time,
Yeah, and my kids like playing it. They really, and actually we have not all three. We have the first Mario Party for Switch and then Jamboree. There's the other one that's in between. I can't remember what it's called. If it's like Super, like, I don't know. I think the first one's called Super Mario Party.
Mario Party Superstar or something?
Yeah, I think it's Super Mario Party Superstars, and that has some of the older levels rebuilt. I never got that one. I was hoping it was going to go on sale, but like most Nintendo games, they don't. And Jamboree, I think I got with one of those digital the vouchers. So, but yeah, I just think that's a great game to go a little bit further than Animal Crossing. It's also a great game just to dip your toes in. There's no investment, right? You just get in, you play, and you leave. There's no, like, Animal Crossing, you're kind of building a world, and that's like a little bit more, involved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So then here's my next question for you then, because you took us down the Mario Party rabbit hole. Where do you feel that Mario Kart and the Mario sports game fit into that landscape? Because Mario Kart is obviously like one of the most, like, it's probably the most popular video game like franchise ever, like, to be honest, like, with how much it's sold. I don't know what the actual stats are on that, but like everyone and their mom that I've ever talked with, like, knows what Mario Kart is. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
pretty much everyone has played it, if they're even remotely close to our age. They may not like it or play it a lot, but they at least have played it at one point. And that, to me, like a racing game that's co-op, like, and Mario Kart can get intense depending on what CC you're playing on. Like, it can get intense. And so I think that is in the same way that Mario Party is a great party co-op game or versus game that is in some ways low stakes, in some ways it's higher stakes, and it's very rewarding of skill. But, do you feel that is appropriate for new gamers? Because a lot of people, like, that is, one of the few games that they've played. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I feel like it comes back down to that, like with Mario Kart, obviously it's one of the most popular games, and my kids love playing it too, but when they first started playing it, obviously they were just trash, right? They didn't, my middle child always came in last place, even though I had all the handicap controls on, right? So it keeps you from falling off the edge, it auto accelerates for you, and he had the motion controls, so he had to do steer it, but like at the end of the day, he doesn't know how to use items, he's still crashing into walls. And so because it's a game that's very actively involved, and while Mario Party has actively involved parts, right, the mini games, you have a chance to kind of stop, go through it, try it out, practice, and then you go into it. And yeah, they may not do as well, but there's so much rubber banding in Mario Party. Like, it's so random. Like, there's skill, but there's also just insane dumb luck, right? And the game tends to always seem to find a way to help people boost them up. And I've seen my kids win from that. So I think from that perspective, I think Mario Kart's like a little bit higher tier because it's a more actively involved game where you can't stop and help them because you're playing with them, right? You're racing. Whereas Mario Party, you can kind of do the practice rounds, you can talk them through it, and then also, like with my kids, I kind of actually help them by saying, hey, this would be the most strategic way for you to go at this fork in the road. And you should use this item now because it's going to help you. Not because I'm trying to help them win, because I think it's more fun for them. I want them to have fun and also learn. And so that game, you can be a little bit more involved in instructing and helping, whereas Mario Kart is kind of like, okay, here's the controls, and then you just kind of have to experience it trial by fire. You just have to get in there. Even on 50cc, easy CPUs, doesn't matter, right? You're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to push this button. I don't know how to push that button. And you all have to doing it all at the same time, right? You're trying to, steer and and shoot an item. You don't know what the items do. So, yeah, Mario Kart a little tied, a little up. And then Mario sports games, that's like, I guess I'll just be honest, I haven't played a lot of Mario sports games, so I couldn't tell you, like, and obviously it changes based on game between golf and tennis and all those other ones. So, like, I don't know, that kind of varies on the game. And obviously, like, certain generations are really good, whereas some generations have just been absolute trash. So I couldn't tell
absolutely.
you. Yeah, I can't tell you which one. Like, some of the Wii U ones were terrible. But, I don't know.
Camelot should have been making Golden Sun.
They should be. They better be.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I had Mario Kart, Mario Party on here. Now one game I wanted to bring up, because this is a game that was really the best game I felt like that I had the most success with for my kids. Because it's just, again, it's a similar in that it's an active game, but the stakes are still very low, and there's so many handicap things you can put in this game to make it really hard to lose, and that's Yoshi's Crafted World. And I know, like, I never got to play Woolly World, and I know that one's considered better, but if you're not looking at things objectively and you're just looking at purely from, like, this is a game that kids can play, because kids don't care, right? This game is actually really good for kids because it's side-scroller, so they're not having to deal with 3 dimensions. It's got, like, this little handicap mode where you can give your Yoshis wings, so they basically can't fall to their death. And when you're playing 2-player, like, it's easy to help each other and revive each other. And you just go, and the game's not pushing you forward for most levels. There's some levels that do, but most levels, you just go at your own pace. So they're able to just kind of mess around, figure out the controls, and then they got better. And they're playing, and it's co-op, so my kids were playing together. And so that was, like, probably the most successful game I think I had. They beat that game 100%. Well, I say 100%, like, there's definitely content that they didn't unlock everything, but they beat every single level.
Oh, wow.
Like, every single one. And I think
the backside versions of each?
I don't know. Maybe they did the backside version of both. I don't remember. I know at least the main version. I don't know if they did backside of everything. So that's.
I was going to say, did they beat my wife? She still hasn't finished the backside versions of
I'll have to double check, because I know they played the heck out of that game. So, but yeah, it's because there's barely any dialogue in that game. There's not a lot of reading. Like, the story, it's only for story. The controls are the controls. They're very simple. So that was a game that I think if anyone's looking for a great game for kids, it's a little bit more active and helping them learn how to use buttons and analog sticks and controls. Great game, because a lot of the Mario games, like, I feel like even like Mario Wonder or like the new Super Mario Brothers the U Deluxe or whatever they had on the Switch, they're like, they still kind of a little bit, I don't want to say difficult, but like they don't have the same tools to help you learn and make things easier for you, if that makes sense. So, I mean, only by a small margin. There's still great games for it. I would probably, if I was going to recommend a Mario side-scrolling game for kids, it would be probably not Mario Wonder, but the new Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe.
Really? Okay, interesting.
I just think it's a little bit more like, it's more user-friendly. I think Mario Wonder is fun, but I've played it, I've beat it. To me, it's a lot more technical. Like, there's so many, because of the hats and everything, and there's a lot more choice. And that makes it hard for kids, to know what to do, why they should use this. They just want to go and play Mario. I mean, if anything, the original Mario is probably one of the best Marios if you just want to play it, because it's so simple. It's just jump and forward and run. If they're still learning how to hold the run button. So that's it, right? So it's so simple. But yeah, Yoshi's Crafted World, great.
It's funny that you mentioned Yoshi's Crafted World and Yoshi's Woolly World. So my wife has played the crap out of Yoshi's Crafted World. She loves that game. It's that and Mario Kart 8 have the 2 highest hour counts on her Switch. And I got her Yoshi's Woolly World for our Wii U. And, I had waited, years for that to get ported to Switch, because I thought for sure they're going to port it to Switch. I mean, that's awesome. That's amazing. For those who are unable to see, Leighton is holding up a yarn Yoshi, which it's probably the official one, right?
It's the amiibo one.
Yeah, it's the Amiibo one. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, I got my wife Yoshi's Woolly World for like Christmas one year, and I rage quit that game. That game as a co-op game is awful. Like I'm probably the only one in the world who has this opinion. And okay, this is probably a very controversial opinion. Nintendo co-op side scroller games, specifically of the like Wii and Wii U era, are awful because you can interact with each other. And so if you're playing with anybody that is like a little bit less experienced than you, they will jump on top of you and you will fall to your death, or they'll accidentally pick you up and throw you off a ledge or whatever, and you will eat through your lives like faster than anything else. Like even just playing alone. I mean, heck, you could play blindfolded and go through lives at a slower rate. But that is my personal opinion. I actually rage quit Yoshi's Woolly World, and then the icing on the cake is we got like halfway through that game before I rage quit. Then the external hard drive on our Wii U died, which is where the save file was located. So all of that's gone now. So if we were to actually go beat that game, I have to play it over from the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, I agree with you. Yoshi's Crafted World is a very approachable game, but it is horrible to play in co-op, in my opinion.
I think so. I was going to talk to that because I had similar experiences playing with my kids because they just could not understand the level design and understand like where they're supposed to go. And yeah, I was getting like, eaten by them over, or like they would jump on my back and I'd be like, I need you off so that I can get to this thing. And it was so frustrating, but I realized it's just like, it's not, you have to stop playing as like a professional gamer type mindset.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I know I could beat this game with my eyes closed, and just go back to like caveman brain type thing of just like looking at everything from a new lens, which is why I think it was great for the kids to play together, because they're basically both at the same skill level, with the oldest being obviously a little better, but overall they could play through it and learn it together. Whereas this is why it doesn't review super well, because most of the people reviewing it are adult gamers, are like, this game is too easy, and it's like, it's not made for you, it's made for kids. So
exactly.
Speaking of other side-scrolling games, Kirby's Return to Dreamland, another great game that my kids really, really like.
That game is really good. I have the original Return to Dreamland on Wii. So my wife and I like went through a Kirby binge. I don't know, maybe like April of last year or so, maybe a little bit earlier. I don't really remember, but we finally like finished Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and that is easily the best Kirby game I've ever played. I think it's probably the best Kirby game that's ever been made, except for maybe Kirby Air Ride. But I love Kirby Air Ride, and I used to love Kirby as a kid. I have like all the Kirby Game Boy Advance games, like whatever you name it, I had it. And I got Return to Dreamland for Wii, and I never beat it. And the reason why is because I was plowing through it too fast with my brother. And I'm like, I want this to last. So I put it down and we never actually went back to it. So I'm like, okay, I'll finish it with Katie and that'll be good. The change in quality from Kirby and the Forgotten Land to that is like night and day. So it's a great game, perfect for kids, but it's hard to go back after playing something as good as Forgotten Land. Like, I hope Kirby never goes back, personally.
I think it will. I think they will go back and forth, because it takes a lot more work to make those 3D games. And like the side scrollers are great because you can do 4-player co-op, so I can play with my 2 boys, and my wife maybe she doesn't really play Kirby, but she could join in. So the 4-player co-op aspect, if they can get 4-player co-op in a 3D one, that'd be great. Though that might be like insane, kind of like Mario 3D World, how it's just absolute utter chaos having 4 people running around in a 3D environment trying to keep the camera, like where do you put the camera? So I don't know, like I'm kind of the mindset, I agree with you. I think Forgotten World
I think it's Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
You're right. Sure. And is objectively the better game and more fun, and I love playing it, but I've also found that because of the fact that one person gets to play Kirby and one person has to play a Waddle Dee with the spear, which is a cool character and is fun, but overall, like, the fun part about Kirby games is playing Kirby and having the power-ups, which is why the Return to Dreamland game was so good, because all of us could be Kirby. We could all, like, we'd take turns on which power-ups we'd get and yada yada, and it was kind of more fun that way versus, only one person gets to be Kirby and have all the cool power-ups. Like, like there's levels where you get the star shard things that help you do upgrades, and only one person can play then. So even when you're playing co-op, it ends up becoming a single-player game. So I'll be beating all those while my kids just get to sit there and watch. So it's like, I agree, but I also think that they need to still keep making 2D ones in the same vein of like the same logic why I think Zelda games need to have full-blown 3D games but still have some 2D. Like, it's just fun to have the mix. You don't have to get both, but they have the one you like and then the other one, but they should still be making both because I think they both do well.
Yeah, I think probably what I should have actually said was I hope that they continue making at least some of those. Like, I get that there's always going to be the 2D ones. There's a market for that. I get that. But I think Forgotten Land is so good, it would be a shame to go back to a time before we were getting those.
Oh,
you know what
yeah.
I mean?
I
Like,
think
I want to get more, like, not the Kirby spin-off games so much, though those are, those can be fun. But like, Forgotten Land was so good. It's like, this clearly fills a niche that we haven't had before. Like, let's keep making stuff like this because there's a lot of potential.
Yeah, and I think it sold pretty well, so I think we're definitely going to see another one. But
they're almost certainly working on it right now. Like, almost certainly.
yeah, I don't know which team, but definitely. You can't even imagine what it would look like on Switch too, though. It's going to be amazing. But then that's probably where they could do 4-player too if they have that kind of horsepower. So, but yeah, I mean, that's what's so funny is the fact that we're at a point now where there is this variety of Kirby game. It used to always just be, it's side scroller or spin-off game, and now you've got. I felt like Kirby and the Forgotten Land was almost Legends Arceus kind of vibe. Like, they were kind of testing the ground. I mean, not that was they were never going to make another one, but like they wanted to see, like, okay, let's see how this goes. Like, we don't know.
Yeah. What I kind of like think of it as is, obviously it's not the same game as Breath of the Wild, but in the way that Breath of the Wild was a reimagining of the Zelda formula, Forgotten Land was also a reimagining of the Kirby formula in a way that made it much, much better, and like just objectively better. And granted, there are some things about older Zelda that I really do miss, but I do think that like Nintendo is sort of at a point where they are reimagining a lot of their franchises, and that might be what we're seeing with the new Mario Kart, for example. Because we technically we didn't get a new Mario Kart on Switch unless you want to count Home Circuit, which I don't really. I count that more as like a toy peripheral thing. But that may be, they may just be going through a period where they're like, yeah, let's just reimagine all these things and make better versions of them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is that they're a creative company. They want to come up with new things. They don't want to just keep making the same thing. But okay, so I've gone through a lot of games on my list. I'm curious if there's any other games that you feel, it doesn't have to just be for kids. So we tend to keep gravitating to kids because they tend to be a lot of the new gamers. But, is there any game from Nintendo that you feel like we haven't brought up that maybe hasn't captured a certain category?
Absolutely, and it's going to totally blow your mind that I'm going to bring this up. I think that actually, if you were going to introduce an adult to video games, based on what I've seen work with like my colleagues being like casually interested in games and saying like, oh, I kind of like to play something and I like sort of the Last of Us-esque game or like a God of War-esque game where there's like a narrative to it. Like, in that way, I think Breath of the Wild is actually the best game to start an adult on.
I agree.
And maybe not somebody who's like never played a game before, but maybe someone who's like maybe casually played and it's like, I want to like get a Switch and I want to play something that I can sink a lot of time into, or like just want to play a good story or do something fun. I think Breath of the Wild is the perfect game for it because it rewards the intuition that you would have in real life. Like, if I try this, will it work? Oftentimes the answer is yes. If you can like envision something working, like, it actually will. And so I think in that way, it actually makes it very approachable through its complexity, which you normally wouldn't think would be the case. But because someone's like, oh, I wonder if I could set this on fire, like, to help me out here, like, the answer is probably yes. You know what I mean? And so I think that makes it a really, really approachable game for adults who at least have some passing familiarity with it, maybe haven't played in a while, maybe like, I don't know, like know a little bit about it, or maybe like watch some people play, but like want to start playing themselves. I actually think Breath of the Wild's the best one.
I actually 100% agree with you. And it's funny that you even brought it up because recently I got a video in my YouTube recommended, and the title is "What Breath of the Wild is Like for Someone Who Doesn't Play Games."
Yes,
And
I've seen this video, and it's what it is actually what convinced me about this.
yeah, so by Rasputin, and
Mm-hmm.
I have the video up on my screen right now. But yeah, it's actually a really, really interesting video. For anyone who hasn't seen it, go look it up. It's really great. And he has his wife who doesn't really play video games, and he had her play like other games before, like Dark Souls, which is just crazy to be starting people on. But
He has her play Doom at one point, actually, and there's a really interesting observation with that. So that's another one you should watch if you haven't, is the Doom one.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that one. I was obviously very drawn to the Breath of the Wild one, being one of my favorite games of all time. And it was a very interesting observations because I never really considered that, like, because I come from playing Zelda games, like a lot of the, even though there's a lot of new mechanics, like certain things were familiar to me, certain controls, but like the fact that the game is so well built to kind of give you the freedom to figure things out while still also kind of helping you figure things out. Like obviously when you pick up certain things, it'll like, oh, it gives you a little instruction on how to use it, how to switch weapons and stuff. But then it's just the fact that you can use logic to figure things out, where things catch fire with magnetism and electricity and just physics. And it's actually, and my kids have actually played it. The Great Plateau is one of the greatest tutorial levels ever made. Seriously.
It's so good.
It is. I don't like, some people genuinely are like, this is the best part of the game because like it's almost a game in and of itself, just the Great Plateau. Like honestly, like you could have like a 5 to 10 hour game just there. So absolutely. Yeah, phenomenal. And then you get to leave and it's like just mind boggling how much content there is. So yeah, no, 100% agree. I think that game, obviously it's like a little more advanced than some of the games we've talked about. Like there's definitely more controls. There's a little bit more at stake, life and death kind of thing. You can die.
Resource management.
Yeah, resource management, time management to a certain degree because of day-night cycle. And obviously there's no time management as far as like getting to the final goal. But yeah, it's a great game where you just want to explore. And the thing that he brought up in the video was that his wife really enjoyed the fact that the game isn't just go, go, go. There's a lot of downtime where you can just kind of catch your breath before engaging in another fight or dealing with another problem, where so many games now are like, for people like us who are just adrenaline junkies and need to be just constantly fed something to do. So it's a great game for just, exploring and experimenting. We need more games that let you experiment with and not punish you for it.
Yeah, like it's an incredible sandbox game. It is essentially like in the way that Grand Theft Auto was a groundbreaking game for letting you do all kinds of stuff, and obviously, some people like morally have a problem with what you can do in that game. Like fine, like putting that aside, just from like a technical standpoint of what Breath of the Wild allows you to do, that is in that way Nintendo's like Grand Theft Auto like masterpiece game. You know what I mean? Like it's Red Dead Redemption 2 sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Just with the amount of stuff that you can do in it and how rewarding exploration is, because like, yeah, there's a lot of the world that's empty. I still think 900 Koroks is absolutely unforgivable. But at the same time, it's so good that I didn't even like Breath of the Wild all that much until I played Tears of the Kingdom, and then I went back to Breath of the Wild. And I'm like, I like Tears of the Kingdom better, but there's actually like a lot of really good stuff here. And it was just it was the time in my life when I played it at first. But like I have a massive appreciation for that game now.
Yeah, and what's so awesome phenomenal. Is that if you like Breath of the Wild, there is a sequel. You can just you can put like 200 hours into Breath of the Wild, and then just go switch to another game, and like all the mechanics change. I mean, some of the fundamentals are still there, but suddenly you have all these new abilities. You have this whole new like stuff to explore. Same map, but like not the same map. And obviously,
and you can build stuff.
And I was gonna say you can build stuff, which is like absolutely changes the whole game. Completely changes the game.
I would be interested to see once you decide that it's time for your kids to play Tears of the Kingdom after they played Breath of the Wild, how they adapt to it, like how well would they do with Tears of the Kingdom and the assembly process? You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
it takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, it's pretty straightforward. And so, like, will everything be aligned properly? Probably not. But at the same time, I'd be kind of interested to see how that goes when the day comes.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think Breath of the Wild is kind of like the tutorial to Tears of the Kingdom. You kind of need to play that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because once you master that, really, once you get into Tears of the Kingdom, the only thing you have to master is the building, and everything else is pretty similar. Obviously, new enemies and stuff. But yeah, it's a brilliant. I love that you brought that up, though. Great game for that. Another game, so this is going to be kind of a off-the-wall one, because we're talking about like adventure games and RPGs a little bit. So I have a game I've been going through with my kids recently that I think is kind of like one of the best introductory games to RPGs, assuming your child has, or any person has, some level of like reading comprehension, is Metopia.
Okay.
So it's a silly game.
Interesting.
But it's super fun. It's great for people like maybe, just it gives you a lot of laughs because you can create every character in the game. Any, person, like the bad guy, your team, the NPCs, you can change them with any face you want. And you can create some very hysterical scenes with that. And I've done that by accident on a number of occasions.
I'm sure.
But it's an RPG, though. It's still a turn-based RPG that has equipment and stats and like different things you can do to kind of min-max your team. And so it kind of helps you introduce you to a lot of certain things like resource management, because you have magic power you can run out of. You obviously have health. You have inventory like bananas for health and candy for restoring your MP. And but then you have items, like you have equipment like weapons and armor. And you have different paths you can take in the game. So it's a little bit autopilot in the sense that you're not really navigating the world necessarily. It's kind of like an auto runner. Once you enter a level, you just kind of keep moving, and then you'll run into enemies. But you have certain forks in the road you can take. But it's a great way to just introduce them to the concept and mechanics of an RPG while make it goofy and silly and fun.
Okay, wait a minute. This is not what I thought this was. So I thought that Metopia was, and forgive me for my ignorance, obviously, because I've never played either. I thought that this was essentially just the sequel to Tomodachi Life.
No.
And that Tomodachi Life was like a dating sim with Mii's or something. Like, I know very little about this. I just know that our mutual friend, one mutual friend, more my friend than your friend, who is in Missouri, which may narrow it down. I know that they played Tomodachi Life a lot, and like, so what little I know through them.
Yeah, it's not Tomodachi Life. I've seen Tomodachi Life, and Tomodachi Life is a super funny, hilarious game. It's just silly life sim. No, this is a full-on RPG. So if you ever played on the 3DS, because this game actually was originally for 3DS, which I think is why it has a lot of the Mii theming, because built into the 3DS was the Street Pass game, which also had the adventure game that you could do with the people you did Street Pass with. It's definitely more than that. It's more advanced than that because you actually have to manage a team and you create everything. But yeah, it's basically like there's obviously a plot and a predetermined path, but you get to kind of create all the characters. And so you can put funny faces on all these people. Like, I can't actually say who I made the bad guy.
I mean, it's gonna be me.
No. You're actually one of the playable characters. You're a cleric, of course. Katie's there. She's the class of cat.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's a cat, and then I have my wife, she's actually. So I played through it on my account and already beat it. But we wanted to play through it again, and since you can't just hit reset, you have to delete the save data to actually restart the file. So I was like, I'll just go into her account and do it. So now she's the main character, and she's a princess right now. But like you can have a class of tank. So my brother is a tank.
Okay, I was wondering if he was in it.
Yeah, he's in there, and his wife, she's a mage because she likes Harry Potter.
That makes sense. That woman just played Hogwarts Legacy 6 times as much as I have.
Yeah,
which is wild.
You know, they listen to the podcast too, so.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I still haven't beaten it. Please
Yeah.
don't spoil it for me.
Okay. And then I have, what else? Of course, I have my kids. So my sons wanted to be warriors. I made my youngest daughter a pop star. So that's like the bard of the
Nice.
class.
Okay, that's pretty fair. That's
Yeah.
pretty fair.
And then there was like, there's all weird classes. Like I'm a chef because I didn't know what else class to be because I don't know. My sister-in-law is a thief.
This sounds awesome.
There's so many different classes. There's like some weird ones. Like you can be a flower.
Wait, what?
You can be an imp. You can be like, I try to remember all the different ones. Yeah, there's just so many. It's pretty funny. Yeah, it's just a hilarious game, and it's a lot longer than you think. It like, especially if you want 100% all the levels, like it takes a long time to burn through it. And what's great about it is that because it was made for the 3DS and then ported, and it's obviously been better textures and stuff, but essentially it's still a similar game. So the Switch has way more power than the 3DS. So, and I don't know, maybe the 3DS version had this mode, but I just hold down the B button, it basically turbos the game. So like everything happens faster. Wow. So you can just like turbo through everything. Like you can be running through the levels, speeding through fights by just speeding up all the combat. So it's so nice just to be like, not slow it all down.
Is this co-op?
Not really co-op. The only way it's co-op really is if you're just like working together with someone to make decisions, but you're not really like multiple people controlling anything, right? There's still only one person playing.
Do you have a physical copy or is it digital?
I have it digital, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. All right.
But they have it on sale sometimes.
I'll have to shell my own money.
But I don't even know if they have a physical copy version of this game. You might. You have to look it up. It's probably one of the cheaper ones, probably like $50 versus $60, but
that's not too bad. Maybe I'll buy it as a surprise for Katie.
Yeah.
She doesn't listen to the podcast, so she doesn't have to have anything spoiled for her.
It's super fun though. Like again, super silly. If you're willing to take the time to make the Miis, though, you do have to make a lot of Miis. But I've made like most of my in-laws. I could just add more like, nieces and nephews. I could make more friends, but I got to a point where I was like, okay, I've just made like 30 people and I'm just going to make certain people NPCs. So yeah, it's, I think I made my dad one, like the genie character, which was really funny.
Nice.
Mitch and Michelle were like, I think they were like a prince and princess thing that I just put together.
Oh, okay.
I thought, that'd be fun. And actually, it's funny how sometimes you put these characters in and you're just like, wow, that actually fit way better than I thought it would. And then there's times where you get it completely wrong. Like my brother-in-law is like a super fitness guy, and I put him in there as a king, not knowing that the king was going to be this giant, heavy, fat guy. And so he's just constantly eating food. And then like I have like my brother-in-law in there who's like very, very fit, like very strong. It's like
nice.
And Perfect. Of course, then my kids go and tell him, and he's just like, "What the heck?"
I love it.
So great. Yeah, super fun. Highly recommend. Great for kids. Great for anyone who just wants to have fun playing an RPG but doesn't want to get like super into the weeds of like hyper like you look at, I don't know, I'm trying to think of games where like you can really get into the weeds of like inventory management and space management and min-maxing everything. This game, you can min-max it, but you can also like, and because I'm min-maxing it, my inventory is just so high. Like it's like I'm just so OP right now. I just destroy everything. I have more health items than I'll ever need, and I try using them as much as I can. I just literally can't use them as fast as the game gives them to me.
Wow.
So it's a very easy game, but it's kind of fun. It's very silly, goofy. The dialogue between all the characters is fun. Your goal is to also like build relationships a little bit between the characters, and not like crazy. You just basically put them in the same room in the house, like between levels. And then there's certain outings you can put them on, and they do like silly dialogue things, and they build up relationships, which gives them other abilities to use in combat that will help you win. So like sometimes they'll like do like a pincher maneuver where like one hits from the front, one hits from behind, and it does extra damage. Or one time they they warn the other player to move so that they don't get hit from an attack, or just things like that.
Okay, that's kind of interesting. I might have to pick this up.
Yeah. Anyway, so I went a long rant about Miitopia, but I just thought I'd bring it up because I hadn't really considered, but like, yeah, that's a really good RPG for like anyone. There is a lot of dialogue, but like my son is playing it and he can't technically read everything that's being said, but he understands enough. Like he can still get the controls and understand what to do. Because you can also just set all the characters to auto fight. and
Mm-hmm.
you literally just have to level them up and deal with the other stuff. So the fighting can just be completely auto, which has his pros and cons depending upon which fight you're doing. But I have I think all the other everyone except for me is on auto fight. So like my characters, I actually control the abilities because it kind of sways the tide of the battle a little bit. But I could have
Mm-hmm.
everyone manual and just control everybody's attacks, but it would take a lot longer. So anyway, that's me. I feel like I need to give you chances to. I'm looking at my sound wave, and I've been talking for way too long. So, what's another game you want to bring up?
I'm trying to think of let's say that you wanted to introduce someone, sort of like you were saying with RPGs, to another genre. I was thinking okay, hypothetically, what does Nintendo have? Well, Nintendo has a lot of platformers. They've got some RPGs. They've got some shooters. And so in the shooter genre, I sort of feel you have three-ish dominant IPs. One of which we have to bring up every single time, and we haven't yet. But the first one that you think of is Splatoon,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is, obviously not a first-person shooter, but is a shooter nonetheless, is more competitive. Don't know if that's really good for beginners necessarily, but it's at least kind of an interesting concept. So I don't know. If someone's looking for a team shooter, that is essentially Nintendo's equivalent of a hero shooter at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Metroid, and I think Metroid Prime Remastered is a really, really good pick for this. If you really wanted to get someone, if someone's I want to play a shooter, I have a Nintendo Switch, what's a good one? If they already have a Switch, they've probably played other games where you explore, I don't know, let's say they had Breath of the Wild or something like that. Metroid Prime is a really good balance between exploration and combat. I think that's a really good fit. It's got the lock-on feature, which helps people with aiming. And then there's the dual analog controls that come, with the Prime Remastered. Plus, it's $40.
Yeah.
So I actually feel like Prime Remastered's a good one. The last one, which isn't quite a shooter, and it's not really accessible on Switch, but in some ways is a shooter, is Star Fox. It's more of a piloting game, but there obviously is shooting elements. You have to, pilot to... you're essentially moving a cursor. The fundamental gameplay of a shooter is move cursor over object that you want to shoot and press button, right?
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, Star Fox, especially on the rails, it kind of fits the bill. And we have to bring up Star Fox every time. So there's our obligatory Star Fox mention. Of those three, I think Metroid Prime is the best choice. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I definitely think while Splatoon appears friendly, family friendly, and it is family friendly, it is surprisingly difficult. I mean, if you play online, it's brutal. But if you...
Yeah, they're sweaty. They're so sweaty.
They're so sweaty. It's so dumb how sweaty everyone gets on that game now. But the single player is fun, though some of the later levels are really tough. I mean, I died a lot trying to beat some of the later levels. Maybe not Splatoon 1, but the second two, especially the DLC stuff. And then what we talked was Metroid, and then the other one was...
Star Fox technically is a shooter, but not really.
I think Star Fox 64 is probably an easier game than Metroid.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
As far as especially Star Fox 64. So if they have NSO and they can play Star Fox 64, it's pretty straightforward. I played it as a kid, and it is very similar, like what you said. You just point and shoot. There's a few extra controls you'll learn, but the game kind of walks you through it. And you definitely have to die a few times, but it's pretty simple. But yeah, Metroid is nice in the sense that there is you can pace yourself. It's not on the rails. You move forward when you want to move forward, right? But on the other hand, the one challenge I would have with Metroid, and this is even to this day, I still sometimes forget what I'm supposed to do. It's very easy to get lost. The game does not hold your hand at all. I mean, it will eventually kind of alert you where to go, but there's times where that game can really confuse you as far as where to go. Control wise, not a problem. Gameplay wise, I think the mechanics game kind of walks you through here's how you should logically defeat this enemy. But yeah, the exploration side, as fun as it is, could also be the most frustrating thing for new players who aren't as good at keeping track of their progress. And also that map is not easy to navigate.
No, it's not. It's not a perfect game, but in the realm of Nintendo shooters.
Oh yes, yeah. In the realm of Nintendo shooters, it is definitely the best, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like if you want a more hand-holdy one though, Metroid Prime 3.
Yeah, Metroid Prime 3 I think is more hand-holdy. Metroid Prime 2 in some ways is also hand-holdy because you tend to go to an area and stay there for a while. And so from an exploration standpoint, it's not quite as bad.
Yeah, but I think that game's definitely more hardcore oriented. It's
yes, yeah. Like so, combat much harder. Exploration wise, a little bit less so than Prime 1, though all of them have the hint system.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or at least some sort of hint system. Prime 3, it's been a little bit. I feel like it just straight up like tells you where to go.
For most of it, yeah, and it's very like linear design.
Yeah.
For a lot of the levels too. So, pros and cons to that. As a kid, I thought it was phenomenal. I loved that game. I haven't gone back to play it, so I'm sure I have some rose tinted glasses. But I do think that the game was, because it was for the Wii, was definitely oriented to new players and definitely will hold your hand a lot more. So as much as I'm like, it'd be better to play the games in order, blah, 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 I didn't play them in order. So if you just want to play a Metroid game. Now, obviously, it's a lot harder to play that game because it's not available anymore. So it's so hard because, like, there's definitely games where I was thinking, I'm on my list, I have, like, Wii Sports, right, is a great introductory game, right? And it clearly was because so many people bought the Wii for it. But you can't buy Wii Sports anymore. You have to buy Switch Sports, which is not the same. And no one can tell me otherwise. It's just not. Wii Sports
Switch Sports has badminton. Wii Sports does not.
It's just... I know it's different than tennis, but it's not that different than tennis. Like, I've played
sure
it.
It's not. I've actually never played Switch Sports.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely more technical, but, like, I don't know. The sword fighting is fun because it's basically taken from the Switch Sports Resort. I find the soccer to be kind of fun, but also, like, it's an extra commitment to play because you're already set up with one controller, and then you have to suddenly switch to two in order to play. I know, like, on the Wii you had to switch to a nunchuck, but that was like, I don't know. I prefer to play like tennis, bowling. I know they added golf. Volleyball wasn't as fun for me. It was very autopilot. It just didn't have the same charm. But that wasn't the point I was bringing up. The point was that there's certain games I would recommend, but they're just not accessible anymore. Like, the Nintendo doesn't have a way for you to buy those games. So it's hard for me to recommend Metroid Prime 3, even though I'd say that's probably the better Metroid game to play of the shooters. But, you're kind of out of luck. So Metroid Prime Remastered would be your next best one. So
absolutely. And then... Yeah, I agree with you. I think, unfortunately... I'm trying to think of, like, any other, like, shooter that I somehow forgot for Nintendo, but I really think the only other thing that's currently accessible are third-party games, right? Like on the Switch?
Yeah, so
I feel like that's got to be it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should just touch on that with the little bit of time we have left for the recording, because I do think... and these are going to be games I'm going to be listing that I know are on the Switch. So if you're a Nintendo person, you can still get these. But and some of them kind of overlap a little bit with, maybe some of the previous games we talked with. But, like, I added, like, obviously to me, one of the most prevalent, easy to get into games that's on every system are any of the Lego games.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah. Probably one of the most accessible franchises, games of all time. And just about every version is just super, like, just a easy version of a different genre. Like, I have it's like Grand Theft Auto of Lego games. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was the detective.
Oh, Lego
one.
City Undercover.
Yeah, that one was interesting. The load times are atrocious, but it's kind of a fun game once you're actually in it. And of course, Lego Star Wars. Did they port
that?
Did they what?
Did they port that to Switch?
They did. I have the Switch version.
Okay. I have the Wii U version.
You would think that the load times would be better coming to Switch version, and they are better, but, like, not as much as you would expect. Like, you would expect, to be half the time at least, but it's still pretty bad. They clearly didn't put a lot of effort in it. They just ported it with a few extra things and called it a day.
All right.
But most of the Lego games are pretty fun. I have the Lego Star Wars collection. Kids love that one. You can do co-op. It's Lego, right? I mean, there's no risk. You die, you come back immediately. Great game. So
absolutely. I feel like if we're touching on non-Nintendo games that are good to get into, obviously other consoles have a higher price tag. So assuming that money is no object, or like someone already, like, I don't know, had a roommate with a PlayStation, like whatever. I feel like a lot of the story games are going to be like appealing to people, and specifically ones with like easier difficulty modes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, just like they're interested in the story. Like The Last of Us is probably like one of the most famous games for this, where like people just love the story of The Last of Us. It never hooked me personally. Just add it to my list of terrible takes. But people love that. I don't know if I think it has easier difficulty modes, and I'm not entirely sure. But like that is probably like if someone's looking for like a good story game, that's and they want to get started on games like that, that's probably one I'm going to recommend. Yeah. To be honest, even though I don't particularly like it, like I've just heard such great things from everyone else, and in terms of like I've seen it, whatever, but it just wasn't for me. But it is for other people, and so for that reason,
I think if you're someone that wants to get into the more mature games too, like those are, I mean, there's so many great story-based games now and pretty much if you want those kind of games, you really need to go to PlayStation. That's where they're all at. Nintendo just doesn't have a lot of those. There are some, but definitely don't go to the Nintendo Switch if you're looking for narrative games. I don't know why people keep getting upset that they're not there. That's like, they're on PlayStation. Go to PlayStation. They're just mad that it's not portable. Though I guess most of the Sony games are coming to Steam now or something, so you can just get them on Steam Deck.
Yeah.
But
that like Horizon would be another good one that people like. I actually did like Horizon Zero Dawn. I have some problems with this gameplay, but I actually largely liked it. Obviously Spider-Man, like if you like comic books, like the Spider-Man game, at least the first one's quite good. I never played Miles. Well, no, that's not true. I've played a little bit of Miles Morales. Never played 2. Yeah, there are a lot of like really good choices when it comes to the narrative side of gaming. And I agree with you. I think that pretty much PlayStation or PC is where you're going to get that. I think the closest thing that Nintendo actually does have, I can't believe I forgot this when I was talking about it earlier, is Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem is the most narrative heavy like series that Nintendo has. I don't necessarily think it's always a good narrative, but it is a narrative. You know what I mean?
That is true.
It's like, it's fine. And I liked Engage. I didn't finish it, but I did, enjoy a lot of it. So I don't want to hate on it too much, but that is going to be the harder side of gaming to satisfy someone with on a Nintendo console. You're pretty much relying on whatever ports exist, and on the Switch 2 that might be more accessible. Like if Red Dead 2 comes to Switch 2, like there you go, like that's what you recommend. It's not a Nintendo game, and it's obviously only for adults, but that's what you recommend for that.
Yeah. Well, now we're starting to get into the more like, this isn't like entry level games in my opinion. These are definitely games that require a little bit more understanding of how to play and more, I don't know, understand the mechanics, because it kind of just doesn't hold your hand the same way. But yeah, kind of going away from that, some of the other non-Nintendo games I had were like more like entry level easy games, kind of fall into the more like 2 of them I have are kind of Animal Crossing-esque. I say Animal Crossing-esque, they're very different, but Stardew Valley, super amazing game for just building your own world and more relationship building simulator. And then, I mean, one of the most obvious games that I feel like it just seems like I don't even know. Don't even have to bring it up. It's just Minecraft. It's like,
oh yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Like as much as like, and it's funny because I played a lot in the beginning when it first came out. I don't play it as much. It's not something I'm super into, but I understand the appeal, right? I understand why it's such an accessible game, because it is just a similar thing where it's like you just get in the world and you just figure things out and you build. It's gotten a lot more complicated, so I don't know if it's as user-friendly as it used to be, but it's still very much like you go in there, you punch a tree, you get wood, you make stuff, right? It's like you can do whatever you want. You can just do creative mode if you don't even want to, really have to try hard and just want to build things. Another game that doesn't need any introduction that is very different, but is Tetris. I mean, come on, that's like one of the most universally easy games to just be like, hey, you want to play a video game? There's Tetris. Like, it doesn't take a brainiac to figure that one out. It's a puzzle game. Actually, that's the thing we didn't really touch on very much was puzzle games because
that's a really good point.
I did have Dr. Mario on here. I was like, that's another great game if you wanted like a Tetris-like game for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And then
got to mention Dr. Mario every podcast too.
Oh man, yeah, we have a list.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Pikmin yet, but I'm sure it's coming.
That's the thing. I don't have it on the list, but I actually really should have because. So we talked about this though before with Pikmin and like all the different games and our thoughts. That was our last podcast, but Pikmin 4 is definitely it's like right on the edge of like just skirting into an entry level game.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Just because it does have a lot of challenge. It's pretty easy the early game, but like definitely late game's harder. But there's definitely concepts that take a little bit of work to understand, and my kids watched me play a lot of Pikmin, so I think by the time they got their hands on it, it made more sense. But if you've never seen someone play, it could be very confusing. But Pikmin 4 is definitely the best one because it does, for better or worse, hold your hand a lot in the beginning.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. But it does add a lot of features that are so great for new players, like the lock-on, and just the only having 3 types of Pikmin. Ochi makes things easier. Just some of the ways it paces you throughout the game just makes things a lot easier, but definitely for more advanced players. And as you get better, you can continue to work your way up and use more advanced strategies and techniques and abilities. So definitely like right there, kind of like with the Breath of the Wild as far as like entry level games, where it's definitely like a little bit more complicated. You probably want to have at least a basic knowledge of video games going in, but but once you have that, this is definitely an accessible game for anybody.
I think one thing that makes it very accessible, as much as I like kind of hate the feature myself, is the rewind time.
Yes, that's true. My kids forgot about it, so they just kept dying and losing all their Pikmin. So I finally
honestly, that's funnier.
It is funnier, and it makes them think a little bit more. But I did eventually tell them like, hey, you can use this feature, so you don't have to because then he spends days just trying to rebuild his Pikmin population, and I'm like, instead of losing 100 Pikmin all in 10 seconds, just press this button.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay. So, I don't know how we didn't talk about Pikmin, but it's again one of those franchises that I feel like is skirting the line of like, it's kind of like baby's first RTS, but it's not RTS, and it's definitely like has its like I would never recommend Pikmin 2 to a new player.
No, never.
That's just cruel and unusual punishment, but I would definitely hope that they eventually get there. But and Pikmin 1, it's a short game, but it definitely, I think Pikmin 4 is just, again, no time limit, much easier. So,
I think Pikmin 3 Deluxe, I think, is actually an interesting edge case where if you're doing a co-op session with somebody, that is the best one to do, best Pikmin game to do co-op. Because 4 doesn't have real co-op, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can sort of walk them through and show them, oh, this is how you like manage Pikmin and whatever. So in that way, Pikmin 3 Deluxe can be considered a better entry-level game than 4. But I agree with you. In general, I would normally point to 4 unless they want you to do it with them.
Right. 3 is definitely a better family game. 4 is just a better entry-level game.
Yeah.
So, just play Pikmin. I mean, I don't know how many times we have to say this on this podcast, but just go play Pikmin, please.
Why haven't you done it yet?
We're not really, you can see our numbers. We're not like pulling in thousands of views. Just pause the video and go play Pikmin or the podcast, exactly. Wherever you are.
We'll still be here. Don't worry.
We'll be here. Come back. Just go play all the Pikmin games and come back.
Every single one of them.
Every single one.
Including Hey Pikmin.
Yes. If you can find a copy somewhere.
Yeah.
So, well, I think we're kind of at the end of our time. We've burned through an hour of just talking about loads of games as we usually do.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I hope this was somewhat informative. Obviously, like kind of the wrapping this up is like Nintendo just makes a lot of games that are very accessible for for people to play. Even the games that I feel like are hard are still easier than some of their more like their counterparts on other systems. But at the end of the day, like you can't really go wrong with a Nintendo system if you want to kind of work your way into video games. So
Absolutely. It's got the lowest price for entry, too,
yeah,
which is obviously an important consideration.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you don't need to play on a TV, you can get a Switch Lite refurbished from Nintendo for like $180, which is crazy cheap. Like the 3DS eventually launched at $250. I know it got discounted eventually, but like I think it got discounted to like $180. So it's basically the same price as the 3DS was back when it was out. Obviously, if you want to go more, you can get the regular one for $300 or less on refurbished OLED. It's incredibly accessible system.
Yeah, or in a couple weeks when we finally learn the Switch 2's price and it's $700, then you could just go for that.
Yeah, yeah. If money's not up,
Yeah.
yeah, more horsepower means easier games, right? So
Exactly.
well, this has been fun.
New funky mode.
Yes, every game has funky. It's built into the system. It's just funky mode.
Even Metroid Prime 4 has new funky mode.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of which character represents Funky Kong in the Metroid universe.
It's just Funky Kong.
It's just Funky Kong in all the universes. He's
but with an arm cannon.
Oh yeah, right. He's just Doctor Strange. He just goes from multiverse to multiverse universe.
I'd be fine with that.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. It's been a blast. We hope you enjoyed. If you like this, please follow us. We're on a bunch of different streaming platforms, or for Spotify, Apple, Amazon. It's all in the description. You can find us also if you're on YouTube. You already know, but we're also on YouTube. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I'm Leighton. He's Ryan, and we'll talk to you again next time. Bye.
See ya.